Song, Bill Johnson, third week in a row gets to pick our songs, pledges. Daniel, who did you like?
Mark's going to do pledges.
Mark's going to do pledges, prayer.
Oh, I didn't see Ken's not here. We can need a full set.
Jack's got it. And objects.
I got it.
That was going to be Paul. Or, okay, somebody.
All right. That was rough.
Paul will do it.
Paul did it. All right. Bill, Mr. Johnson, Colonel Johnson.
America. God bless.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Let's bow our heads. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us together to help serve the community of Denton. Thank you for the food put before us this morning. Thank you for all the gifts you give us. We are blessed indeed to have you as our Lord. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, let's recite the objects of Kiwanis to give primacy to human and spiritual rather than material values of life, to encourage the daily living of the golden rule in all human relationships, to promote the adoption and application of higher social, business, and professional standards, to develop by a precept and example a more intelligent, aggressive, and social citizenship, to provide through Kiwanis clubs of practical means, form enduring friendships, to render altruistic service, and to build better communities, to cooperate in creating and maintaining that sound public opinion and high idealism which makes possible the increase of righteousness, justice, patriotism, and goodwill.
Yes, well, we have two guests this morning. Gentlemen, you want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Mr. Hello, I'm Kudo, and I'm the master.
Welcome, gentlemen. You could have stepped in. You said, I know, I'm going to get a taco and go sit with those people. So thank you for coming. We're glad to have you. You're the heart and two of that group, you know. So,
No lottery today.
no lottery today. Look at that. Jack was going to win today.
Well, but
Jack saved another week. Yeah.
can we take a second? Has anybody heard from Deanna?
Yeah.
No, she's, well, I know she's home still. Her family was in town for a week. They're back. She's going through treatments. Keep her in our prayers.
Their treatments are every other week, right?
I think so.
Okay.
All right.
Any key club announcements? Not a lot happening this time of year, I know.
Did you?
What are y'all doing Saturday?
Yeah.
We're excited for the parade.
Okay, so you're gonna. Are you gonna be with us, or are you gonna be in the parade?
With y'all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to confirm that.
How many have you got?
So we do have the 4 patriots that you asked for, and like 1 extra person, but they just weren't able
Okay,
to
go back to.
But what?
They weren't able to make it today, but they're
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're gonna be dressed in period costume,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just not a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Most anything else.
Yeah, especially not.
Where's Denton?
So, and that will be July 1st is our parade. It is our 4th of July parade. It's not going to be hot, I'm sure.
No, I think we started 7:30. Isn't that right?
Starting to line up about 7:30. The actual parade starts at 9,
So the judging is at 8.
and that's 8.
Yeah.
So
Before
you need
we
to be
ever
there
roll.
early. Yeah,
We will already have won first place before we ever roll.
absolutely.
Do we set up a shelf somewhere in here to hold our trophies?
I think we're gonna have to do that, yeah.
We'll vote on that. You know, we were in the paper. We were in the paper today.
July.
Oh, we were.
Yeah, from a picture from last year.
Is that right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in the newspaper.
I had to find that out and I had to post that.
Oh, thanks for that, Paul. We'll get that.
Yeah.
July 5th, Turkey Roll Committee meeting at St. David. I imagine that's gonna be at noon.
That's noon, yeah.
1 week from today. July 5th, first Thursday, at my house. Now, I got a sign-up sheet over. Betty, would you start that sign-up sheet? That's strictly just how many people are coming and what do you want to eat. Now, you all remember Gary Wadley, the firefighter amputee? You remember Baby Friday,
Yep.
the KRLD reporter, and her husband did our artwork. And I know you remember the Denton Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They're all three coming and bringing their spouses. So
They're all gonna be there?
all
First
six of them.
Thursday.
So that's 6 guests we're gonna have. Invite guests, I'll buy every hamburger Kroger has. If you wanna invite some guests. And, it's a great time. That's how we got Daniel. He came to a first Thursday and he hasn't escaped yet.
It lured me in with food.
For the price of one, look what we got for the price of one hamburger. So feel free to invite your guests and then let me know next Tuesday, for sure, and I'll add to that list. And that's
Board
my
meeting.
promotion for that. July 12th,
If it's at 6:30.
quarterly trash pickup July. Yes, sir.
6 o'clock or 6:30?
6:30. 6:30. Thank you. I always forget to say that. And somebody shows up at 6 and somebody shows up at 6:30. If you get there at 6.
Put them to work, right?
You get there at
if you're
6.
6 o'clock, you're gonna man the grill. So, one other thing, we will most certainly be inside. It's gonna be hot. If it's gonna be hot like this, we'll eat inside. I'll cook outside, or I'll get Henry to cook outside, but we will eat inside. So come.
What is available?
What's that? Yeah, pool's available too, yeah. But, come and bring your friends, just let me know how they're coming so we don't run out of hamburgers or hot dogs. July 12th, board meeting, July 15th, quarterly trash pickup. Yes, sir.
Ken Reedy made an excellent point the other day.
He does have a lot.
We're gonna quit calling it trash pickup.
Okay.
We're gonna call it neighborhood improvement or.
Well, I keep saying trash pickup. It's actually our adopt a spot, and I need to start putting adopt a spot on there. And I apologize for that. That's me.
I think he makes a good point.
Yes, he does.
I want to lose the word trash.
That's a good
Trash pickup sounds like we're doing community service to work off the fines.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is probably true, but we're not gonna call it.
We don't want to do that anymore, that was bad.
So what's the consensus?
What's that, Fritz?
Consensus?
because this is adopt a spot. Just make it
Adopt.
adopt a spot. Because that's what it is. It's our adopt a spot.
Okay, August 3rd through 5th is the convention in Granbury. Get registered for that.
I'm registered. Okay,
All
so
right.
everybody leave me
And
alone.
sign up for the class, yes,
Let me
sir.
say on that, if you bring me some kind of proof of registration and that I can put in the file, I'll write you the check that we agreed to pay everybody.
Okay.
How do we get the proof if we do it online?
It should have sent you an email
An email? Okay.
that has a receipt. That's your receipt.
Or your credit card receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just give me your credit card and I'll make sure.
I think, so that let you in on the convention, but you have to find a hotel. That's a hard part. Because the hotel places are so big.
Okay, when you go to the convention, sign up for Out of Run membership drive. We should be filling this room. And there are people in Denton right now that wish they had somewhere to be. This is where they should be. So they just need to hear about it. And then November 17th and 18th, 41st Turkey Roll beginning at Denton High School. 41 years. We'll make this a big one. Of course, you all know we're going to need you and your neighbor. So there's a lot of work to be done that day.
And we're going to be here in 10 years going to 51st.
And there's a lot of fun to be had that day too. So I do, when you get up at the crack of dawn and say, I got to do what today? But then before you know it's 4 o'clock and you've had a lot of fun. So join us for that. And let's see, going the wrong way now.
There we go.
Mr. Council Member, would you like to introduce our guest?
Would I?
Yes.
All right.
About 6 weeks or so ago, I got an invitation to the Denton Black Film Festival from Harry Eaddy. I have never been to the Black Film Festival, and I was pleased to get the invitation. It was held at the Alamo Draft House, and my wife and my friend and I went, and we had an interesting evening. It was something that I just hadn't been exposed to, and I broadened my horizons. So I invited Harry Eaddy to speak with us this morning and tell us about that, about a variety of other things. Harry is a technology expert, came to Denton in 1978 to continue education at North Texas, and has stuck and has been an active member of the community. And I have invited him to join our little group. So, with that in mind, please give Harry Eaddy a nice warm welcome. Okay, just tell me when.
Yes, sir.
I was going to plug the laptop in if that's possible.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's bike shop and to get support. And so, it's been a long time. He's always very nice and educated me a lot on things I should do and maybe not do right on my bike. So I'm really excited to be here and share a few things about the organization itself, which is the Denton Black Film Festival Institute, what we do, but also talk to you about a project that we are now working on about Quakertown. And so you may or may not know about either of them. But just to give a little background on myself. So I arrived in Denton in '78 to attend UNT graduate work. I spent 40 years in technology. Things that you probably saw, but didn't know a lot about what we did. So how many of you are familiar with Jurassic Park?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So my company did a lot of that visual work. Toy Story, did visual work on that. So I spent most of my life working with governmental agencies, Lockheed, other aerospace companies, Boeing, oil and gas companies, anyone that needed to kind of visualize data. And so I did a variety of things from on the sales side up to a VP, ran almost half the country for some organizations, right? But Joe asked me a really interesting question he said, I don't know very much about you. And I said, well, most people in Denton don't. Because I traveled about 60 to 70% of the time, most of my career. So I was rarely here. Most people knew me by my daughter and my son. And so when I would go to events on the weekend. But anyway, that's a little bit of background. So I'm also the president of the Denton African American Scholarship Foundation, which you may or may not have heard of. So we have been in existence since I think 1984. And Euleen Brock, if some of you remember her, and Horace, but they were part of the NAACP at the time. And so they were instrumental in forming an organization, particularly Euleen, and then actually moving it forward. And about 14 years ago, they asked me Euleen asked me to head the foundation, scholarship foundation. So we've awarded probably 330 to 350 black students over the years, and to a tune of about $410,000 to $420,000, right, to students, right? So thank you. So that's been rewarding. But one of the things we realized is a lot of our students were, a lot of our the people that donated to the scholarship foundation were literally dying. They were, of a certain age, right? And many of them, unfortunately, were. So we had to figure out some things. And so I went to Euleen and said, well, how do you raise money, right? How do you do that? And she said, well, we just send out letters and people give. And I said, oh, I don't have those kind of friends, right? So I said, so, there might be a $50 or $20, but they were getting fairly hefty sum of money every year. And being in there probably didn't hurt, right? But Yulene was really a wonderful person, her and ours. So with that, my wife and I attended the film festival, which we really have been pretty involved in the arts over the years. And kind of interesting story. Even though I was in business, I spent most of my time with creatives, right? Because I thought by and large, people in business would say we're kind of boring, right? Because it's numbers, and so we do that. So I was fortunate that I could use the things I did in business to support my interest, which was the arts, right? So we did that, but one of the things we did, we were at a film festival, actually Thin Line. Some of you familiar with Thin Line. And we were there, and I told my wife, I said, why don't we, we're looking for a fundraiser, why don't we start a film festival? And my wife said, oh Lord, here he goes again. So I said, no, honey, we can do this. And she said, well, I tell you what, why don't you get started, and then I'll see how it goes. And then I'll come back. And I said, okay. So we did, and that was, I guess, in March. No, February when Thin Line was. And then by August, we had started the first meeting for the festival. And then in January, we kicked it off at the campus here with Mike Barrow, some of you know Mike, right? So it's been really a wonderful experience. So what I want to do is give you kind of a little overview of what we do, and take about probably 5 or 6 minutes, and then talk about Quakertown, and we'll be moving forward. So this is a little bit about DBFF. Someone asked a question when I first started. They said, well, why would you do a Black Film Festival in Denton? And my response was, why not? And then they said, well, is there a large Black population in Denton? And I said, no. I said, it's maybe 7 or 8%. And I said, but I saw the movie, can't remember the baseball film.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. And the guy said, build it and they will come. I said, no, that's a ticket, right? We'll build it and see. But the mission you can see here, and then the goal. But there was not a lot of Black cinema. And so what we thought would be really good is to try and help people understand really more about Black culture, right? And so that was really the goal. And I'll talk through the numbers, but we ended last year with over 10,000 attendees, right? Per year. So we're in about 12 to 14 different venues around Denton. We take over downtown, but we're also at the Alamo Draft House and others. But just to give you a little feel for that. So 2015 was the first one at the campus, and then the next year, after the first year we had about, if I can see, we had about 800 attendees over a day and a half. The next year we tripled in size, so to about 2,400. So it was growing. Let's see what else. We became we launched the Institute, which is significant, in 2019. And then we separated from the foundation because some of the things we needed to do, we could not be involved with a scholarship organization. And then we became a separate 501c3 for the Institute in 2020. So here's some of the things. So we're a little different than most. How many of you have ever been to a film festival? Okay. So what we find is that only about 10% of people actually attend film festivals, right? And usually they're very curious, and they have an interest in finding out a lot more. You see a lot of independent filmmakers. And so that's really kind of the impetus of us doing the film festival. But what I thought, when I looked at the model, I said, film festival models I think are kind of dated, right? Because people of a certain age, meaning most of you, not them, people sit in a movie theater for 5 days, 6 days, right? And you may go to 1 or 2 films a day, depending on who you are. Well, that's not who they are, right? They're pretty busy, right? So I'm sure you gentlemen do a lot of things, right? And so from a pure age and demographic standpoint, we said, let's try to figure out how to attract a lot of people who may be interested in different things. So what you see here is we have film, we have spoken word, we have comedy. So we have about 8 or 9, 10 things that we do. So we're really more like South by Southwest, if you're familiar with that model. And so, and then my background is sales and marketing, so I thought that might be good for us. And it's really kind of helped us. The film is our anchor, which my wife tells me every day, but she's in charge of film programming. But about 50% of what we have at the festival is film related. And then everything else is really telling stories through dance, spoken word, comedy, etc. So, a couple of years were virtual years, right? So that was really hard for us because we're a really friendly festival. But in 2023, we rebooted. It was in January. It will be in January every year. So here's a little bit about what we did. I will say that one of the interesting things about the festival itself, if you attend, let's say an Asian film festival, it might be 90+% Asian. If you attend most black film festivals, it's 90+% black. If you attend a Latino, Hispanic, it's probably the same thing. We have about 20 to 22% of our audience is not black, right? And the reason is that that's a design goal on our part to share culture. We do two things. We share black culture and we build community. So along the way, the city of Denton really became our largest financial sponsor, which we're really pleased and excited about. But we shared the same thing. In fact, there was a very interesting discussion between the current mayor and Chris Watts when Chris was the mayor. So Gerard Husband he asked the mayor to come to the festival. So they walked around downtown because we have a lot of activity downtown. And he said, "So what do you see?" And so the mayor was like, I don't understand. He said, "Okay, so I want you to look at who you see on the square." And it was primarily the white community. He said, "Now, when there is a film getting ready to start, I want you to see what happens." So when we're like 30, 40 minutes before the film, it was very diverse, right? Black, white, Latino, Asian, right? And then when the film started, it was back to being primarily white, right? And so the mayor was like, that must be an aberration. It's probably not going to happen. So they stayed for a couple hours, saw some films, maybe about 3 or 4. And then they came back the next day and did the same thing. And he said, So they realized that while the festival is there, it's very diverse. Because some of you attend, probably most of you attend arts and jazz, right? When you go to arts and jazz, it's off the square, right? And people are there. But when we're in town, it's covered, right? Most restaurants say that they have an hour wait when we're in town because most of the people, and I know you don't like to do this, but most people watch film and eat, right? And then they watch film and eat, and then they have their friends. So the other thing that's really been important about it, we cover topics about race, right? Because most people don't like to talk about race, right? But we think it's really important for people to understand what race does and what it doesn't do, right? So we have a lot of conversations about that, which we think are really important. Let's see. Okay. But I'll get back to this slide. But anyway, so I wanted to let you know that because that's really the landscape and the environment. We think it's really important to really just kind of share. So my wife and I spent a lot of time working with other film festivals in Dallas. Dallas has, North Texas has, you can probably know this, they have 28 film festivals. Really? 28. Yeah, and so we participate, they call it Best of Fest. And so we've been trying to, just like Thin Line, to encourage people to consider Denton more. But film festivals are really, I think, important, right? Because it tells stories that you wouldn't normally see because most of the filmmakers are independent filmmakers, right? But the reason why I talk a lot about that is because you're going to find really interesting people at film festivals, right? Because they're just curious, right? And so they want to know things like, how do you make goat cheese, right? It's a documentary, right? Which we saw at one festival. but just being able to be in that arena is really nice. So we have done a lot of things over the years to try and promote the community, which I appreciate that the city council has really been very, very supportive. We would not be doing the things we're doing now if we're not really the support of the city of Denton and also the city council and their efforts as well. So we've done some other things like the original music and screen dance, so that's really important. Those of you who don't know, screen dance is cinematic dance, right? So basically you film it just like you would a movie, right? And so it's really good, and so we run those two contests. We also have a tech expo that we started, which is really wonderful because I came out of tech and I thought it would be important because most of us have no idea that Peterbilt, in the next 3 to 4 years, probably 35 to 40% of all their short haul and some long haul trucks will be remotely driven. Yes, and you won't know that because there'll be a driver inside, but that driver will be sitting in the passenger seat. And so what we're trying to do is really share a lot of technology, particularly for these young men and young ladies that are coming to really talk about technology and benefits of technology. So we decided to do that. Before I get to Q&A, the other thing is that we also had a hackathon. And a hackathon is really an attempt to help young men and women solve technical problems. And so we had about 40 plus middle school kids here to kind of help them do that, and they broke into small groups, and the problem they solved was the interaction between technology and film, right, and how to develop a short film, about 3 minutes or less. So we did that. We're working with the city of, we're working with the DISD for 2024 to, include them so we can do something that maybe get a couple hundred, kids. And NCTC has been a really great response with that. So moving to 2024, before we get to the Q&A, is our 10th year program, which we're really excited about. So this year will be on joy, right? So we're going to share joy. And so we're hoping we have someone coming in from Florida State, a recent graduate from Florida State, who is working with Texas Women's University and hopefully Texas Women's University, hopefully UNT, to talk about joy. I mean, how many of you have ever really thought about the idea of joy and what joy really means to you? So few. So we're going to explore that. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have panels because we believe that's really, really important for us to really understand and have an appreciation for it. So with that, if you don't mind, I will not open up the Q&A right now, but I will talk about the Quakertown project, and that'll take about 3 minutes, so if you can pass those out. So the Quakertown project is, I think almost all of you are aware of Quakertown. Okay, so a little over 100 years ago, Quakertown happened, but what you may or may not know is that in Texas alone, there were over 500 documented freedmen towns, right? And today, there are only a few that are recognized. Dallas had over 70, which I found out recently. There's only about 7 that are recognized now. But if you look at most of the freedmen towns, they were impacted or destroyed from 1915 to 1925, right? And Quakertown was one of those. And so there are the City of Denton, Texas Women's University, some of the clubs, etc., were involved in the move of Quakertown from where it was into Southeast Denton, right? So we had a film that was screened called Echoes from the Hill, and it was about a community in Arlington, Texas, that was Freedman Town, it wasn't moved, but it was isolated, and they talked about that. So after the film was over, we invited a lot of people from Arlington, but also Denton. So 3 of the city council members and the mayor came to the screening. So after that, they said, well, we talked about Quakertown, but what about a film about Quakertown? And so, quite frankly, I was, Joe, I was a little surprised, right? We were hoping that it would be something that the council might be interested in. And so, a few city council members talked to filmmakers that night, and they've done some wonderful work. Some of their projects have been on PBS, Rising, if you've seen that. It was on PBS last week. But anyway, so they said, well, what about doing film? And so, make a long story short, there was a vote in the city council on May 2nd, I believe it was, for Quakertown. So the city has decided to invest $250,000 for that film, which we think is an amazing thing. And then what DBFF is doing, we are trying to raise another $250,000 to create a multi series, documentary series. So it's going to be, the more money we raise, the better product we can have, right? So we're hoping to do something that can be on Netflix, Hulu, something like that. And these filmmakers have the connections and the pedigree to do that. They work with Michael Bay, if you're familiar with him. He's a well-known filmmaker. They have a lot of connections with HBO Max, Netflix, Hulu, right? So we're hoping to create a really, really good product, which I think is really great for the city of Denton, because up until last week, there was never a documentary about, a feature documentary about Tulsa. The Greenwood, I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. It was called Black Wall Street. It was a very affluent black neighborhood in Tulsa, right? And you probably know about that. Well, there was a documentary last week. But I think the advantage for Denton is this story can be told, we think, in a very good way about what happened, what occurred later, and how things are today. And I think it will really put Denton in a positive way. Tulsa receives thousands of people every year to look at that. I think Denton will receive hundreds a year. I won't say thousands, it could be. Because I don't know if you're aware, TWU is doing a project to commemorate it. It's going to be really, really amazing. We're doing more things in the city for the Quakertown Park and other things. The sign toppers have occurred. So it's a project, and so I provide the sheet to you. So we're officially beginning the fundraising in about 2 weeks. It's taken us a little longer because we've been trying to negotiate with filmmakers, right? And so we're hopefully about a week away from getting the agreement signed. But we've started the fundraising as of this week. So that gives you a little bit of information about the project. So the focus is really to get businesses to give. And one of the things, just to give you an idea, we, normally when people come to you, they say, oh, we need $1 million, right? And so we're not doing that. What we're saying is we're asking the businesses to probably give us, and including Kiwanis, maybe $1,000 or $500, right? So we all contribute, right? If we all contribute, then it makes for, I think, a wonderful project. So not everyone is burdened, because it really is not a black story. It's really an American story. It's not only a black story, Denton story, but also an American story. So you're going to see some of these pop up in communities, but for the individuals, we're just saying whatever you can contribute would be great, because we want the story to be told. And so I have some envelopes. If some of you want to take some envelopes, I'll pass those out. And those, if anybody wants to give, great. If Kiwanis wants to give, that's great as well. But that's the presentation. So any questions? I think we got about 7 minutes. Yes.
What was the name of your the film company that you were with that did the animation for Jurassic Park? I thought it was Pixar that did that.
Well, the name of my company was Silicon Graphics.
What?
Silicon Graphics.
Silicon. Okay.
So Silicon Graphics really was a platform, hardware platform they use.
Okay.
Yes. And then again, Toy Story.
Great graphics.
Yeah, it was. In fact, the company founded 3D Graphics, Silicon Graphics did. And, you know, unfortunately it had some financial problems. I should say mismanagement problems. And so it sold the company to someone about 10 years ago. In fact, if you're familiar with NVIDIA, most of your gaming platforms are using NVIDIA hardware and software. That company spun off of SGI, as we call it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah. Another question.
You mentioned two of UNT's favorite faculty members, Eugene and Horace. And they were obviously just in love with UNT. I'm surprised that the radio and film department of UNT's not involved with your group. Have you reached out to them?
Oh, yeah, they are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we work with them quite, UNT is a big supporter.
Oh, good.
So we work with them quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. In fact, we have some upcoming meetings, and we do screenings with them, and then meet the arts department. Good question.
So, I think I know, I'm not originally from Denton, but Quakertown was located like by the city center now, is that what it's, okay?
That part was it.
Yeah. Okay, I've seen, when I moved, I read about Quakertown when I moved here. I looked at pictures of before and after. It's quite okay.
Yeah, and so I think some of you are familiar with the topic, historic trauma.
Yeah.
You've heard about that. Well, so one day I was in the community and I was talking to a black young lady. She was about 40 years old, right, at the time. And I was just asking her, because, you know, my wife and I were always on the street. And we rarely saw black and Hispanic and Latino people on the square, right? And so we were like, well, this is kind of interesting. So I asked her about that, and I said, well, do you go on the square? She said, oh, no, I don't do that. And I went, interesting. I said, why? She said, well, it's not for me. And I said, okay. So I said, well, I'm not originally from Denton, so please help me understand. And she said, well, basically, we were removed and basically never invited back. And so we don't go on the square. And I thought that was really sad, right? So sometimes the impact of what happens has tremendous trauma that you don't really think about. And, you know, to an extent, I don't understand, but to an extent, I do understand, right? And so what I did is I just invited her to go. I said, because you're just missing, you know, a lot of things that go on. And so, and several people over the years have asked me the same question, right? You know, from the city, right? They're like, well, why don't we see more black and Latino people on the square? And I think it's gotten much better, but that's something that I think, if you look at it, really started with that. One thing you may not know, which I didn't know either, is that the black community did not have paved streets until 72 or 73. And they had no utility services until the late 60s or early 70s. So they had to literally take their garbage and other things to the dump themselves, right? Which I didn't know. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? So that brings about that trauma, right? And so what we're hoping is film will also bring about some reconciliation, right? Because I think most of the people in the city don't really know that the black community feels like that, right? And the black community doesn't necessarily believe the city understands their position either, right? And so that's just something I think is something that would be a good benefit, right? To have a baseline of a story like this. Other questions? So I would encourage you to consider attending the festival. It's our 10th year. It is great. We're known for a couple of things: operational excellence and being very friendly. So, and then you'll be engaged in, you know, I think some really, really great conversations. But I do appreciate your time.
When is it?
It is January. It's the last week in January every year. So this year will be from the 24th of January until the 28th. And then we will probably do a virtual component, so it'll be a hybrid, and that will probably start at the end of the 28th. And we run probably another 3 to 5 days.
Where would people see promotion of that?
Of the festival itself, you'll start seeing it the first week in July. When we're going to start the launch for the festival.
You're on Facebook, right?
Yeah, we're on Facebook.
So everybody needs to go out and like your Facebook page, and then
Right.
you'll get the social media updates, right?
Yes, and then we will be posting things pretty regularly there. I know they're on Snapchat and TikTok and all that. You may not be, but we have Instagram, Facebook, and all of those. So I think we'll each other.
Just one quick, I'm sorry, I waited till the end after. Bass Reeves, are you familiar with Bass
Yes.
Reeves? Okay, with the film that they're doing.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, there's actually there's a group in Fort Worth that's also looking at the Bass Reeves documentary as well.
Now, y'all are the only two people in the room that know what that is.
I know who it was.
So I do a little bit of acting, you know, and so I got to go to Stephenville and another city to actually be part of that. So it'll come out later on this year. Taylor Sheridan did the Yellowstone and in 1883, and a spinoff of 1883 is 1883 Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves is a true story that you've never heard of, all right, but he's the actual inspiration of the Texas Ranger, of the Lone Ranger, all right. The actual inspiration, he actually traveled around with an Indian. He actually arrested over 3,000 people. Lived and actually was a lawman just around the same time as Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson and all those guys, but he was black.
He was one bad dude.
So
He was
this
tough
is
as
the
nails.
this is the first true story that Taylor Sheridan is actually doing, you know, and so it should be good.
Yeah, and I think also from a rodeo perspective, he was the guy that I'm thinking of someone else that was involved in Bulldog, right? In rodeo. But Bass Reeves was a bad dude.
He was not- No, people like Wyatt Earp didn't mess with him.
We have a gift to commemorate your speaking with us today. And there's two.
Nothing.
It's loaded.
There's very little money in here.
That's what my 5-year-old granddaughter would say.
We have a list of the sponsored youth clubs that we're very proud of on one side. Members represented by Denton High School, there go Broncos. But importantly, the name of our organization on the front and our motto, we build, and this is particularly for you, come join us.
Yeah.
And we mean that sincerely. We'd love to have you. I hope you'll think of us when you don't drink coffee, but you can put a little iced tea in there as well.
My wife drinks coffee a lot.
All right.
But I would like to find out a lot more about your organization. Really
I will talk back.
Yes.
We'll talk.
Thank
We'd love to
you.
have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting, guys. Wow. Interesting, very interesting topic, very enlightening topic. First Thursday, don't forget, what else? What am I forgetting to say? Where's the list? Where's my sign up list?
Right here.
Okay.
Who is on the float Saturday morning? I got Daniel, I got Mark,
I'm on it, yeah.
you're on it.
I've got Jonathan coming back, so Ben Franklin from last year will be on our float as
Not as Ben Franklin.
not as Ben Franklin this year.
Paul.
Paul's on
Oh,
it.
Paul's on, okay, good.
And then
So you need, we have George Washington will be on the front, we'll have somebody holding a flag behind George Washington.
Right.
We will have 4 oarsmen, I made the oars, you haven't seen them
They
yet.
got an orange.
And then we're gonna have people walking, handing out candy and promoting our club, right?
Yep.
So we need to meet at the Wells Fargo parking lot at 7:30. Oh, 7:30 on a Saturday morning.
Now, Keith, you're gonna
What's that?
pull up right on the locust, right? Like we did last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna do whatever. Do whatever you like. You know what I'm gonna do?
Don't wear a t-shirt. In a perfect world, I would have you wear a white shirt and maybe a scarf. That's what those guys are
It's gonna be
wearing in the painting. Yeah, in case you get hit.
We need you to get your heaviest coat that you have. Now, if you can,
White shirt,
White shirt's fine.
like down here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have made what I call Napoleon's hats.
Okay.
I've got 4 of those. They're worth what it costs us, so. They're what?
Yeah.
Betsy Ross has also volunteered to change sides and to be on the boat as well.
Who's
Well,
gonna do?
she just needs to look like
She does.
a patriot of the day.
She does.
Hey, and if we're sitting down, will anybody see our pants?
No.
Okay, I'm not planning on wearing any.
No.
I was just making sure.
Thanks for the heads up on
There's a
that.
film in the making right there.
Yeah. We'll make the news on that.
George Washington and his band of perverts.
You show up no camp. I'm gonna be listening for whoever says, hey, I know that guy.
We need as many people walking as we are in the boat because we're gonna have a lot of handouts. We've got my wife's ordered like 1,000 dum-dums, so we're gonna be handing out the candy to the kids and then doing the handouts, and so we need quite a bit.
Mark's
Betty,
son is driving
My son,
Yeah.
my son.
Oh, your son?
My son.
I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon.
Tell your son he's driving. No, my son's driving the truck.
so if you guys aren't in the boat, then you're gonna be walking. So
Yeah.
be
And
ready.
with my son driving, there are seatbelts in the boat.
Have we established the trailer hitch situation?
Let's do that this afternoon. I got everything.
I don't wanna have this conversation on Saturday morning.
Last week.
I guess there's still a hitch.
Yeah, we got 2 hitches going on right now. We still gotta find a
I'll
flag.
bring my hitch over and we'll make sure this works this afternoon. And I think that's it for today. Who's Daniel? You know who we got next week?
I do not. I'm working on a couple of things, and I do not know exactly. So.
Okay. Next week's a surprise. Sign up for first Thursday. We'll see you then. Lots of guests already coming, so make sure you tell them we won. And we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much.